Most leadership failures are not visible when they begin. They begin earlier, in perception, not in what leaders do, but in what they stop seeing. Power does not just increase responsibility, it alters cognition. It changes what feels correct, what feels urgent, what feels necessary. And most of this happens without awareness. By this time, it shows up in decisions. The distortion is already active. In this video, I am not going to talk about leadership skills. I am going to show you something more fundamental: how power changes the way leaders think, and why most leadership systems never train for it. And if you stay till the end, you will see why this is not a behavioral problem. It's a structural one. We tend to believe that leadership problems are behavioral, that leaders become rigid, stop listening, make poor decisions. And we explain this as ego, personality, or character. But this explanation is incomplete because it assumes that behavior originates from intention. In reality, behavior is often a response to altered perception. Power changes the environment around the leader. Feedback reduces, contradiction becomes filter, dissent becomes less visible. And when that happens, leaders are not ignoring reality. They are operating within a narrower version of it. So, what looks like overconfidence is often reduced exposure to contradiction. What looks like poor judgment is often miscalibrated perception. And this is where most leadership analysis stops too early because it focuses on what is visible and ignores what is shaping it. Let's break this down structurally. Power creates three shifts. First, cognitive narrowing. As authority increases, the range of perspectives being considered reduces. Not because the leader chooses it, but because the system around them adapts. Second, feedback suppression loop. Less challenge leads to less input. Less input leads to more certainty, and more certainty leads to even less openness to input. This becomes self reinforcing. And third, identity integration. Authority is no longer just a role, it becomes part of self perception. So, disagreement is no longer processed as information, it begins to feel like resistance. Now, combine all three: reduced input, increased certainty, identity attachment. You don't get a leader making bad decisions. You get a system where correction becomes difficult. And this is where most organizations misdiagnose the problem. They try to fix communication, alignment, execution, but the distortion is happening earlier inside cognition. Now, the critical question: why are leaders not trained for this? Because leadership education is designed around skills, decision making frameworks, communication models, execution systems, but not around internal architecture. Leaders are not trained to observe how perception shifts under power, how pressure alters cognition, how authority reshapes identity. So, what happens? Power is assigned instantly. Internal regulation develops slowly, if at all. And in that gap, distortion stabilizes. This is not a capability issue, it is an education design gap. This is where leadership becomes personal, not in terms of personality, but in terms of awareness. Because the question is no longer, are you a good leader? The question becomes, can you observe how power is shaping your thinking while you are using it? Because if you cannot, you will not see distortion while it is happening. And if you cannot see it, you cannot regulate it. Leadership does not break at the level of action, it breaks at the level of perception. And the ability to see that is what will define leadership going forward.